Woo! Good morning. All right. Okay. If you've ever been at all interested in investing ever, there's one thing you absolutely need before you can actually go do the investing part, and that is a brokerage account. A brokerage account is an account that lets you buy and sell stocks and other financial products. So the reason why you need a brokerage account is you can't just, go out onto the street and be like, hey, can I fucking buy 800 shares of Apple? And everyone's going to be like, what are you talking about? And then you're going to get one guy, yeah, I'll sell you 800 shares of Apple for like $1,000 a pop. And it's like, well, that's not what it costs right now. And it's like, well, that's what I'm willing to sell it for. And so you're like, fuck. And so in order to access, the market, you need to have this account where you can put out, the sell orders or the buy orders that you want. And the brokerage account will, broker those deals. They'll hook up the buyer and the seller, and they'll hook you guys up and say, hey, you want 800 shares? Yeah, I want 800 shares. Great. And then, they make that happen. So that's what a brokerage account is. And that's why you need one to, dip your feet into the world of investing. So first I'm going to talk about the different brokerage companies that are out there, brokerage companies that I feel like would be a good place for you to start. And I kind of have them, categorized by different things they do. You can't really go wrong with any of them. There's just like these minor details that are slightly different between, each of them. So just keep that in mind that, not one is like the best one, right? They all have their slight advantages and disadvantages. Up first is TD Ameritrade. So TD Ameritrade is kind of known as a very beginner-friendly brokerage because they have so many resources for people who have never done it before. There's a lot of, I guess you could call it hand-holding, but it's good to have those things if you don't know what you're doing, because it can be, pretty intimidating to boot up a software program or a website that you've never been to and you just go, I don't know where to go. That's kind of TD Ameritrade's edge, is there's lots of resources for you there. And other websites are pretty good about this too, but I think that's kind of like TD Ameritrade's like bread and butter. And then there's Fidelity. Now, full disclosure, I personally use Fidelity, and the only reason I do that is because Fidelity offers a $0 commission, which basically, I should explain commission, huh? So commission is what brokerages charge to hook up those deals, right? And most of the time they do it for free on US stocks, right? Stocks that are like in the US where I live. And they'll do that for free pretty much most of the time. Sometimes even free for options or ETFs or other financial products. But the reason why I have Fidelity is because they have $0 commissions on penny stocks. I just wanted, zero restrictions on, basically I know that whatever I buy, I won't pay to have that transaction go through, which is really nice. Even though it's not expensive on other platforms, it's just, free is free. Like, why wouldn't you have free? That's why I like Fidelity. That's why I have it. Then there's E-Trade. Now, E-Trade, as you can probably tell by the name, like E-Trade, they're kind of known as the web-based and mobile-friendly brokerage. Fidelity, the one we just talked about, its app is like, it's serviceable. It's not bad, but it's definitely like early 2000s, like we just discovered the internet and what it can do. E-Trade is like very nice and easy to look at. It's, you understand what you're clicking on when you click on it. And so I'd say if having something that is easily accessible on your mobile device or your laptop, that E-Trade would be a really good option. Up next is Charles Schwab. Now, Charles Schwab, I think, is a really good option for those of you who want to use investing as a way to set up a retirement account. Charles Schwab has very good policies on either withdrawing money from a retirement account or really good rates for retirement accounts. So I would look into Charles Schwab if that's something that's important to you. I started out with Charles Schwab actually, and I love their website. It's very easy to use, but I switched to Fidelity for the reasons I mentioned earlier. And Charles Schwab is still a really good option if, you're trying to go really long term with your investing. So all of these brokerages offer $0 commissions on US stocks. Obviously, there's exceptions for international stocks, and those could have different fees associated with it. And again, like I said, you can't really go wrong with any of these. They all do the same thing, and they all have good reviews online. And so it just kind of comes down to those tiny little differences I briefly touched on. So next, when you've picked a company to go with, a brokerage account to go with, you're going to want to pick what kind of account you actually want to open up. There are three, we'll just say two main options, with one of those options having two different kinds. And the first one being just your average individual account. Pretty much every website will have this listed as an individual brokerage account. And what an individual account is it's just a normal brokerage account. You pay taxes on your earnings every year. There's no withdrawal penalties. It's just as simple as that. Money goes in, you buy stocks, you sell the stocks, money comes in, and then you're taxed on those earnings. And also dividends, just like normal. And that's a whole nother topic, I guess, for another day. So yeah, individual account, normal basic account. That's what I would recommend starting with, just to know what you're doing. Again, at those companies, you can open up one for free. It's no big deal. And then there are IRAs, and IRAs stand for Individual Retirement Account. And the reason why you might want an IRA is that there are certain benefits as far as taxes are concerned for having an IRA account. And so, like the name implies, they're mostly advantageous. Well, they're the most advantageous for people who are using investments to retire later on. So that's what an IRA is. And then from there are two types of IRAs. So the first one is just your normal IRA account. A normal IRA account, basically you put contributions into it, let's say part of your income every year, and you can buy stocks, buy ETFs, whatever, and you can build your portfolio. But you can't pull any of that money out without penalties until you're 59 and a half years old. That's what is currently the retirement age for these brokerage companies. If you're going like really long term here, then an IRA is a good option, because none of those earnings on your stocks or whatever you buy is taxed, and it only gets taxed when you pull it out when you retire. So it grows tax free. And then when you pull it out at 59 and a half or whatever, then it gets taxed. And so that is advantageous to a normal account, because you're not paying all those taxes before retirement. But the flip side of that coin is you're not able to access that money as easily before 59 and a half years old. So let's say you want to pull some money out for a down payment on a house, or you need to buy a new car, fix your car, or something like that. Pulling out money from an IRA account will incur a penalty fee. And so the brokerage will say, well, you were supposed to save this for retirement, but if you absolutely need it, here you go. But we're going to also charge you, whatever, X% or dollar amount, and taxes on top of that. So it doesn't make sense if you're trying to, if you're opening up an account for your monthly beer fund or restaurant fund or whatever, don't do IRA. Don't do that. It's not going to be worth it. Just stick to the individual account, and that's going to be good for you. Now, the alternative to a normal IRA is a Roth IRA. And a Roth IRA is a little more flexible than a normal IRA, and that's typically what people go for when they go for an IRA. And a Roth IRA is kind of this, it does the same thing as an IRA, but inversed a little bit. So you pay taxes up front before retirement. So your earnings and all that stuff, you're paying taxes on that until you retire. But when you pull the money out at retirement, it's completely tax-free. Also, with the Roth IRA, you can pull your contributions out of the IRA without incurring a penalty. So if you put in, let's say, $1,000 and a month later you're like, oh shit, I actually need that money, and pull it out, you can pull that money back out without a penalty with a Roth IRA. And that's kind of what makes a Roth IRA a little more flexible. However, just like a normal IRA, if you pull out earnings, let's say you sell stock and made money, and you pull that money out, that will incur penalties and also taxes on top of that. So those are the two types of retirement accounts, the IRA and the Roth IRA. The IRA, you don't pay taxes while contributing, pay taxes at the end, a little more rigid, not as flexible. The Roth IRA, you pay taxes up to retirement, don't pay taxes when you retire, and it's a lot more flexible as far as pulling out money early. And then, of course, the individual account that doesn't provide any benefits as far as tax purposes goes. But like I said, if you're planning on using this as like a, kick around money, pay for the beer, pay for going out to restaurants with the friends, and I would use the individual account for that as far as, you're always going to be pulling out money. So I would do that. And of course, as they say, ¿por qué no los dos? Why not both? Sorry for the pronunciation. I'm sure it wasn't very good. No one says you have to do one or the other. You could have multiple accounts. You could have your retirement account. You could have your beer money account. You could have whatever, So that's also an option. I'm not saying you need to get one. And then from there, it's pretty self-explanatory. You just hook up a bank account, just pick a number that you're comfortable starting off with. It doesn't need to be, and it shouldn't be your entire life savings. You should keep some money liquid, meaning you should have money sitting in a bank that you can pull out whenever. You shouldn't have all of it tied up in the market. That's not the smartest practice. So I would just start with a little bit just to, kind of get comfortable with it and understand how to work the website and where you're going as far as placing an order or whatever. But you also probably won't get a lot out of just putting in like $100, for example, because keep in mind, a lot of stocks cost between, like $5 and $500. And some, like Amazon, for example, is like $3,000 at the time of recording this. So if you plan on investing in a lot of those big dogs, you got to put forward a little bit more money. But, like I said, there's lots of affordable stocks out there. Not every stock out there is in the hundreds of dollars. Even $1,000 could probably get you started with a pretty decent portfolio. And then once you have money in your account, all that's left is to pick stocks or ETFs or whatever. And that's a whole nother topic. I'm not really going to go into how to analyze charts and graphs and, where to get your information and what to pick. There's lots of really good resources out there that you can look up for yourself. Oh, and also, as a bonus for you kids that stuck around, you should know the difference between a market order and a limit order. Now, a market order is basically, the shut up and take my money. It's I want to buy this thing. I don't care what price it is. Gimme the thing. And so that's what a market order is. You say, I want it. What's the market price? Give it to me. That's what a market order is. A limit order is kind of like Pawn Stars guy, basically saying that, well, I want to buy it, but I only want to buy it if it's this price, right? And so that's what a limit order is. If it hits that limit, then you buy it. And so it does it automatically too. So when you go into a stock and you say, here's the stock, here are how many shares I want, and then it'll say market or limit. It might have other options, but those are the two main options, is market order or limit order. If you say market, it'll put the order into the stock market and it'll automatically fill at whatever the price is currently. And most brokerages will even try to get you the best deal. They'll search around where all the stocks are being sold and they'll try to, scrape the barrel and try to save you a couple cents. Maybe you get it for $10.12 instead of $10.13, right? That's what a market order does, is it snatches it like that. Limit order, let's use the same $10 price example. Let's say you want to buy it and you say, if it gets from, $10.13 down to just 10 flat, then when you click on limit order, put in $10 and then you click submit, and the order won't go through yet. It'll only go through until the stock price hits that $10 limit. So that's the two main ways you're going to buy and sell things, is with market order and limit order. And an easy way to interpret that, I guess, is market orders prioritize time, I want it now, and limit orders prioritize price. I want it at this price. So that's what market and limit orders are. And and then once you have those stocks, once you have the stocks that you want, I highly suggest loading them into your phone. I know Apple has the Stocks app, and so on the Stocks app, load in the stocks that you're keeping track of. That way, you can keep up to date with it. You don't have to check it every day, but it's a super easy way to make sure you know what's going on. TradingView, for example, they also have a desktop version, but TradingView is a good one. So that's about it. I do hope this gives you a good starting point on, how to actually start investing, right? How to actually get from I'm interested, how do I get to just clicking the button, right? I just want to get to clicking the button and go from there. So that should help. And now go make some money!